Have you ever had that unsettling feeling that you're being watched, even when you're completely alone? For one Reddit user, this feeling became an inescapable, terrifying reality. This story, posted under the title, "The Smiling Man," is one of the most chilling accounts I've ever come across, and it's all the more frightening because it's true. Our storyteller, a young man, was walking home late one evening. It was a quiet, almost deserted street, the kind where every sound seems magnified. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows. He was enjoying the solitude, the quiet hum of the city at night. Then he saw him. Far down the street, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a man, and he was dancing. Not just any dance, though. It was a strange, jerky waltz, the kind you might see in an old silent film, but there was no music. Just the rhythmic scuff of his shoes on the pavement. The storyteller found it odd, maybe a little amusing. He thought perhaps the man was drunk, celebrating a good night out. He kept walking, maintaining his pace, but as he got closer, a sense of unease started to creep in. The man's movements were just unnatural, too precise, too fluid for someone who was supposedly intoxicated. He continued his bizarre waltz, moving slowly down the street, heading in the storyteller's direction. As they neared each other, the storyteller moved to the side to give the man plenty of space to pass. But the man didn't pass. He stopped his dance and mirrored the storyteller's movement, planting himself directly in his path. Now they were standing just a few feet apart, under the orange glow of a streetlight. And that's when he saw the man's face. His head was tilted back, his eyes wide and staring straight up at the sky. But it was his smile that truly froze the storyteller in his tracks. It was a huge, cartoonishly wide grin, showing all of his teeth. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a predatory, unsettling expression that seemed completely disconnected from the rest of his face. He just stood there, silently, with that horrifying smile plastered across his face, eyes locked on the heavens. The storyteller was now genuinely scared. Every instinct was screaming at him to run. He stammered something like, "Excuse me," and tried to sidestep him again. But the man moved with him, blocking his path once more, his smile never wavering. A cold dread washed over our narrator. This wasn't just weird anymore. It was threatening. After a long, terrifying silence, the smiling man suddenly broke his statue-like pose. He lowered his head and started his strange waltz again, but this time he was moving away, continuing down the street. The storyteller let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He was shaken, but relieved. He turned and started walking in the opposite direction, wanting to put as much distance between them as possible. He thought the encounter was over. He was wrong. After walking for a few blocks, he chanced a look over his shoulder. The street was empty. He felt a wave of relief. It was just a bizarre, one-off encounter with a very strange individual. He picked up his pace, eager to get home to the safety of his apartment. But then he heard it. The soft, rhythmic scuffing of shoes on the pavement behind him. His blood ran cold. He didn't want to look back. He knew what he would find, but he had to. He slowly turned his head, and his worst fear was confirmed. The smiling man was back. And he was much closer now, maybe just half a block away. But he wasn't waltzing anymore. He was running. He was running straight towards him. It wasn't a normal run, though. It was a grotesque, exaggerated tiptoe, like a cartoon character trying to sneak up on someone, but at full sprint. His arms were held out stiffly to his sides, and that awful, wide smile was still stretched across his face. Pure terror took over. The storyteller broke into a full-blown sprint. He ran faster than he ever thought possible, his heart hammering against his ribs. He didn't dare look back again. He could hear the man's footsteps getting closer, the scuffing sound, now a frantic, terrifying percussion, driving him forward. He was convinced he was about to be caught, that a hand would clamp down on his shoulder at any second. He fumbled for his keys as he reached his apartment building, his hands shaking so violently he could barely get the key in the lock. He finally burst through the door, slammed it shut, and locked it. He collapsed against the door, gasping for breath, his body trembling. He scrambled to his window, peering through the blinds down at the street below. For a long time, there was nothing, just the empty, silent street. He started to wonder if he'd imagined it, if the fear had made him hallucinate the chase. And then the smiling man stepped out from the shadows across the street. He wasn't running anymore. He stood perfectly still, staring directly up at the storyteller's window. And he was still smiling. He just stood there for what felt like an eternity, his gaze fixed on the window, that terrible, unblinking smile, a permanent fixture on his face. The storyteller was paralyzed with fear, unable to look away. Finally, after an agonizingly long time, the smiling man turned, and with one last look up at the window, he resumed his strange, silent waltz and disappeared back into the darkness from which he came. The storyteller never saw him again, but he never forgot him. Who was he? What did he want? Was he a madman, a prankster, or something else entirely? We'll never know. And that's perhaps the most terrifying part of this true story, the unknown. The idea that figures like the smiling man can just emerge from the quiet corners of our world, shatter our sense of safety, and then vanish without a trace, leaving only a lingering, chilling memory. So the next time you walking alone at night and you feel that prickle on the back of your neck, the feeling that you're being watched, ... maybe you are. Thanks for listening to this truly unsettling story. If you have any creepy true encounters of your own, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the dark side of reality. Stay safe out there,